From the Great Plains of Oklahoma and broadcasting to y'all around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Gary Spikes Jr., filling in for the vacationing and gorgeous Lynn Wallington. Lynn will be back with y'all tomorrow night, but you don't have to worry. Old Gary here is still going to load you up on the woo train. All aboard for the ride of a century. We welcome you to tonight's show on YouTube, Twitch, and Spreaker. You can catch us all there. Please punch the subscribe button and stomp the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a lot of...
Live.
We are live.
No, it's saying go live.
Really? Okay, I got you. I'll start all over.
All right.
Later. From the plains of central Oklahoma, broadcasting to y'all around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Gary Spikes Jr., filling in for the vacationing Lynn Wallington. Lynn will be back tomorrow night, but don't y'all worry. Old Gary is still going to load you up on the woo train. All aboard for the ride of a century. We welcome you to tonight's show on YouTube, Twitch, and Spreaker. Please punch that subscribe button and stomp on that like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a lot of fun stuff for you to dig into. So let's get this trainer rolling. Tonight, our special guest is Mr. Gorga. A former copywriter and journalist with a film and TV credentials, brings his talents to the paranormal and horror genre. A child in the wake of the Amityville Horror and the Summer of Sam, his talent for crafting hair-raising tales was first recognized in the 4th grade. When a teacher called my parents, this is a direct quote from the man himself sitting right here. When my teachers called my parents after the first reading of one of my stories, I thought I was in trouble. He fondly recalls, instead, he announced, "Your son has a real talent for writing. Sign him up for the Young Authors Club immediately." Folks, tonight we have the great opportunity of having Mr. Gorga on. You heard his bio. I will apologize. It's my first time on Spaced Out Radio. I'm a little bit starstruck and a little bit nervous, but we're going to get through this together. Mr. Gorga, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Nervous as all get out.
Well, hopefully we'll have a smooth run.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make it painless as possible.
Now that we got all the professional side of things, we can roll right into this.
Yeah.
I'm like I was telling you before the show, I'm real laid back about this, and hopefully I don't mess up too much tonight. But I'm gonna give this thing to you, and just like in your bio, you got recognized in the 4th grade writing a story that the teachers called your parents. What was that like? Where did you start with this?
I think like the bio says, I for some reason, as a person or in the wake of, I grew up in the wake of, the Amityville Horror movie release, and at that time it was also the Summer of Sam. And at the time, as a kid growing up, I lived in New Jersey, and they actually shot that. The Amityville Horror about 15 minutes from where I was living. So I just remember like this wave of fear between these two things. For some reason, I think just had this really kind of indelible effect on on my interests and the things that I like to write about. So when I wrote this story, I believe it was something about some kind of a mummy on a murder kick or something, and when I handed it in, I honestly thought that I was gonna get in trouble because I don't think people that young were supposed to be writing stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
And but I actually think it was I said in my bio I was 4 years old, but I recently found a picture of the class, and I think it was actually the second grade, which makes it even younger. So, but we'll stick with the fourth grade because that's what I put out there. But yeah, so I wrote the story. He calls up my parents, and I think I'm in trouble. And to my surprise, he just was really kind of floored by, I guess, the story or the creativity behind it. And he was just kind of taken aback, and everybody gets some kind of talent early on that's discovered. You see, singers who can sing at like 4 years old and 3 years old and things of that nature. And but this teacher was able to recognize my writing abilities at an early age, and grateful that he did.
So you actually came into this at an early age from a writer's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a writer. It's the gift that I've been given, and I kind of and you've been given some form of gift or creativity or talent that has to be nurtured, and that's what I've done all along my career, is just kind of nurture this writing ability that's been handed to me.
That's real interesting, because a lot interviewing people and stuff for my channel that I've been working on for a while now. I'm here with Spaced Out Radio, one of the greatest gigs on the planet, by the way, Dave.
I believe it.
But usually they have an experience, and then that leads to the writing, where you have started with the writing. And now I have to ask, in your writing career, because, we are talking about demons and the paranormal, did it lead into experiences? Did you have experiences, of the paranormal nature that influenced your writing?
Yeah, I have. That's what the book is about. There's numerous experiences that I have been through personally, and there's also a major historical account of demon possession in the book as well. Yes. But this book is some of the most intense experiences that I've had, and I cover them pretty thoroughly, in the book as well. But yeah, I have a couple of things that have caused me, or kind of intrigued me enough to start writing in this space. And things. One of the earliest stories is that we were living in New Jersey, growing up as kids, and I was like 4 years old. And but this is a story that we tell like every Thanksgiving and holidays and stuff. And we were downstairs. We had a 2-story house, and we were downstairs. And the downstairs we had a laundry room, and my sisters were playing like around the laundry room, and all of a sudden they see this white hand come out of the laundry room, and it was going to get them. So they came screaming up the stairs. I was sitting at the stairs at the time, and they just came screaming up the stairs about this hand that came out of the, the laundry room, and then obviously my parents, they came down, and of course they didn't see any white hand, but it was one of those things that freaked out, my sisters and I until this day. They know what they saw, even though they were so young. But one of the first experiences for me is when I first became a believer in Jesus Christ. That's when all of this paranormal and all of this demonic kind of stuff started really happening. And one of the first experiences for me was I had just become a believer. I knew absolutely nothing. I know you mentioned that your father was a preacher, so you were probably privy to some of this stuff. But I knew absolutely nothing. Wasn't raised in it. Knew absolutely nothing. so I said, let me give this prayer thing a shot. So it was like one of the first times I ever even tried to pray. I didn't even know how to do that, right? And so I go to prayer, and I feel something behind me. Like I just sense something like kind of come into the room, and I just feel it behind me, behind my right ear, and it's like irksome. So I shrug my shoulder just to kind of like, you shrug your shoulder to like kind of get away or protect yourself or whatever. And then all of a sudden, a voice spoke from behind me, right directly into my ear, said, "You might have gone to God, but you belong to me. I'm never going to let you go. You're mine."
Wow.
And and that's when I realized we were dealing with these, this world that's operating and functioning all around us that no one can see, but it's actually influencing lives and lifestyles and society. And that's when it just became very, very, very real to me. And the interesting thing about the voice was that it wasn't a monster's voice, like you see in Hollywood or anything like that, like it's hoarse or gravelly or anything like that. It was the complete opposite. It was absolutely placid
and smooth,
absolutely regal or royal, and very, very calm and like princely. But underneath that silvery tone was this you can sense this cunning evil.
Yeah.
And it was like an undercurrent of evil underneath this placid voice. And it was, it wasn't anything monstrous or anything like that. It was just pure cunning evil underneath this smooth toned voice.
How old was you when that happened?
I was 26.
26. So you was on in age. Had you pursued let's say the paranormal aspect of writing before that, or did you start the paranormal aspect of research and writing after that instance?
Well, like going back, so the paranormal has always been an interest to me, growing up and everything like that. So obviously, like I was writing these stories and things from a young age. But once this kind of stuff started happening, I said, this is something that really needs to be out there. This stuff really needs to be exposed. And the reason why I wrote Demons Among Us was because it was an answer to a string of nighttime assaults that were happening to me, invisible hands choking me and, trying to choke the life out of me. Chest suppressions, like pushed to the bed, and people would call that like sleep paralysis, but it's none of that because it comes with such dread and terror. You literally sense and feel this evil enter the room. So these things always kind of come with this terrible dark power.
Yes.
So it's, for me, it's not, I just had a bad dream or anything like that. Like I know when these things are entering. I know what they are. I know that I'm under attack.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a
and
physical
so there's all
stimulus.
kinds of other things like, chokings and bitings and things of that nature. So it was a whole string it was going on for like a week or two. And there's a whole string of these things happening. I happen to have a role in a ministry that I'm in, and I run a prayer meeting on Thursdays, and so at the end of the meeting, we were kind of like all in a circle. So I decided to ask people if they were experiencing these same things, and so I said, I'm having these things, these demonic assaults. Is anybody else experiencing these things? And then one by one, these hands started to raise, like reluctant. At first they were reluctant because everyone thinks they're going to be called crazy, right? And so one by one, these hands go up. So when it's all said and done, there's 13 people with their hands raised. They were all suffering these nighttime assaults, demonic attacks. And this is the Demons Among Us is the answer to that because I got angry and I said, okay, you're gonna mess with me. You're gonna mess with my people. You're gonna mess with you're just gonna mess with people. Well, now I'm gonna expose you, and that's just the answer to that. So it's that's why I wrote Demons Among Us, to really kind of expose those things that are happening in the unseen realm, happening all around us, and the impact it actually has without people even knowing it. So it's an answer. That's the long answer to why I wrote this and how I got into it.
That's a very good answer because, once again, like I was saying before, a lot of folks have the stimulus and then they write in response. So you was actually coming from, to me, like a perfect storm almost. You had the writing abilities and then you started experiencing the stimulus, from the way I like to put it, from the other side of the veil. And so then you was able to focus all those experiences together and put it to paper and do the research on it. So you've had a long-term, and the reason I was asking that question is you've had a long-term interaction with the spiritual aspects of, and I will get it out in the open early. Folks, we are discussing demons, and we are going to have to discuss the religious aspects thereof. That's just this, for the lack of better terms, that's the nature of the beast. I am,
yes.
I am myself was raised up Christian, but I'm a converted Buddhist now. But I still believe in Jesus Christ as one and true Savior. I mean, Buddhism is a way of life for me. I still believe in Jesus Christ, and the reason I'm saying this is because we're going to get in a little bit later in your book and how you would actually you'd bring that aspect, the Christian aspect, into this because. And it leads up to another question, real quick question. What is your theory in the book on the origins of demons?
Well, that's the reason why the book has to go into these Christian origins and religious origins, is because of who and what demons really are. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that for a second. What is a demon? What are demons? Demons are fallen angels. So they're actually angels. They're just fallen. They lost their home. They lost their domain. And the reason why they lost that domain is because in heaven there was a war waged because Lucifer wanted to sit as God in heaven. And we don't know how long this war lasted. Yeah. But we do know that that Lucifer and a third of the angels, however many that is, were kicked out of heaven, and now their home and their abode is the cosmos and the earth, and they believe, and Lucifer believes that the earth is his, or he would have never said to Christ, "I'll give you all this if you just worship me." Mm-hmm. So he believes in his very sordid way that this is his home to do with what he wants with.
That is one of the most prolific parts of the Christianity history. And right. I'm going to throw kind of a separate spin on that. We, studying theology, and I'm sure you've covered a lot of this yourself, we don't know the actual timeline, like you were saying, all this happened. Right. We don't know how many demons all this happened. You can trace demonic presences and demonic entities far earlier than what we call documentable Christianity, which would be from the New Testament up. We have a more accurate timeline from the beginning of the New Testament to now than we do from the Old Testament back. And I've always, and it leads into, where you was talking about the origin of demons, you can trace a lot of the same entities, if you want to say it for that, or same character bases from straight across the board, from Christianity to Hinduism to Buddhism to Taoism, all the way back to Aramaic and Sumerian legends. So it goes to show that it's not just and I'm saying this to be politically correct, it's not just a Christian aspect. It is a worldly aspect. It's a species aspect. As a man, dealing with these entities, which are something else.
Well, you look at it as every culture, and then I talk about this in the introduction of my book. And there was a Chinese philosopher that I used as a quote, and he said, if from the beginning of time until now, men have heard the voices heard the voices of disembodied voices, and seen the spirits of dead men, how then can we say that these things do not exist? And I put in the introduction, as well as the cultural aspect of demons as well, because every culture throughout civilization has dealt with demons, and it's in their artwork, and it's mentioned in their in writings and things of that nature. Just because it's older than Christianity does not mean that it's not. It does not mean that it's not of a God origin.
Absolutely.
And what I mean by that is that these things origin from the kingdom of God, and obviously Jesus came later, and this is where we can get into like really, really deep religious thought, is that Christ always was. He was in heaven with the Father, and the Trinity was in heaven. So he was there. He is the creator, and this is Jesus is the human form. But that's why he said, before Abraham was, I am, and meaning that he was there from the beginning. So, and this is where it gets into like real deep theological stuff. So if you're not versed in this stuff, it's going to sound foreign, and it's going to sound deep, and it's going to sound, it might be a little bit difficult to understand.
Yeah,
but
and we won't get too deep into that.
These things have been there since the beginning of time. Absolutely. They originate from the kingdom of God, and it's only in Christianity where we see, like Jesus is coming along and he starts casting out these things out of people's lives, and so we mostly equate these the demon aspect with Christianity. But no, they originate from the beginning. Yeah. That's why we see in the Garden of Eden, and we see Satan in the Garden of Eden at day one of the birth of humanity. So these things always existed, but today we equate it with Christianity. But these things have been here since day one, because we don't know which day they were kicked out of the kingdom of God. Yeah, but they were, and they're here.
So, in saying that, would I be accurate to, in your opinion, would I be accurate to say that probably all of the religion aspects and the sociological aspects and the cultural aspects of dealing with these entities, are we all dealing with the same entities?
Yeah, I believe that what we are dealing is someone had once said that all these or these demons or these or the demons in these religions are it's the devil with a mask on. And when I say like devil, it's not just one devil. It's the whole kingdom of
the essence of the
not one guy running around doing all this crazy shit. It's it's a whole army. It's a whole forces, all the forces that they have as well. But yeah, it's like the demons and the devil in masquerade, I like to say.
Yeah. Very good point, because in studying, like you have done the research in your book, and I've done the research that I've done in the paranormal field, I see a lot of similarities, throughout history and throughout the different cultures, traveling like I did in the military, and the internet is such a great thing. Education now compared to what it was 20, 30 years ago is just outrageous. And I'm seeing a lot of similarities, even in the ancient texts, from the Bible to the Quran to the.
That's right.
and a lot of the other, I won't get into all those because we could be there for hours, but I do
Right.
see a lot of similarities, and that's the reason I was asking you if you thought that they was straight across the board, and that leads into another great point that you brought up earlier of how many. We don't know how many,
Yeah.
as they came. So in your not your teachings, but in your learning over the period and writing and in your personal experiences, do you believe that you're personally, in your personal experiences, are you dealing with the same one, or do you think that you've dealt with more than one throughout your, how would we say, your paranormal
Yeah,
experiences?
I think that we or I have dealt with more than one. I mean, when you're talking about how many, there's got to be countless millions upon millions, and
Yeah.
and I say that in one of the stories in the book is the historical account of like the first fully documented eyewitness account of demonic possession in American history. Which was recorded blow by blow some 2 decades before the Salem witch trials.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very interesting read. But in that scenario, when she was this girl was being attacked demonically, the devil or the demon is, I don't want to give away the book, but he's trying to make her do something. She won't do it, so he shows her all the devils. Like he just kind of like rips open the veil in a sense. And what she said was like, she was completely horrified. And how she said it was, there was more devils than there ever were men in the world. So what we're talking about here is eternal creatures. They're eternal. They're super intelligent, more intelligent than me, you. I don't know about you, but they're more intelligent than me, and they're of a super intelligence and invisible, super strength and cunning and evil, and that's why we can't have power in our own carnal nature or fleshly nature to kind of overcome these things, but. But as in numbers, they don't die.
No.
They're here from the beginning of time. There's millions upon millions upon millions. And I said all that to say is that I would deal with, and other people deal with, different entities, because how the spiritual realm works, or how this demonic realm works, if you look at it as kind of like a government or a corporation, you have a head. That head is Lucifer, Satan. And then you have all of these demonic minions have offices or roles that they function as. Now, they have names. I don't know them all. It's a lot of names, I would imagine. But they're better known to us as their function. So we want to talk about like different spirits, like spirits of fear, spirits of depression, spirits of anxiety, greed, spirits of suicide, spirits of lust, spirits of, so there's all these different spirits that come on, spirits of witchcraft, all these things that are all these spirits that function in the paranormal realm. And these things are the things that are sent out on assignment. And it is possible to be influenced and inspired by many demons. And the reason I say that is there's a story in the Bible, and I'm sure there was a man in the caves or in the tombs of the Gadarenes in the city of Gadarene. So this was a demonized man, and he spent his nights in the tombs screaming and crying and cutting himself with rocks, and no chains could hold him. They would put chains on him to hold him. He'd break them because they had supernatural strength. And so this man would have been probably quite a character in the community. One of the guys you don't want to go around and mess around with, I would imagine. And so here comes Jesus. He comes across the Gadarenes in a boat, and the man meets him on the shore, and he says he wants to, be delivered or whatever, and he says, "What is your name?" And he says, "My name is Legion, because we're many." And the term legion in the Roman sense, in the military battalion of the Romans at the time, could have been up to 2,000 people.
Yeah.
So when he says we are legion, we are many, this man very well could have been possessed by some like 2,000 spirits in his body. And so, long story short, Jesus says, well, they beg him. First of all, they beg him not to kill them before the time, meaning send them to hell. Have you come here to torment us before the time? So they're freaking out. And so they beg to get cast out into the herd of swine, of the pig farmers' swine up on the hilltop. So he casts these demons out into the swine, and the swine run violently down the hill and drown themselves into the water. And I said all that to say is that we're dealing with many, many, many demons, and people could be influenced by more than just one.
Yeah.
It could be multiple things working at once in a life to destroy it without them even knowing it, that they're influenced by them.
Absolutely. There's so many aspects to this. I have to keep a air of neutrality here, but you can definitely tell in the subject matter itself that there's a lot of controversy. Different views, different forms
Of course.
of information coming from different cultures, different sociological impressions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw one at you, and if I offend you, please let me know, and I won't do it again. But what is your thoughts that maybe the demons, because we don't know, and I actually don't like using the word demons. I like to use entities because, but do you think that we don't know at this time? Do you think that demons or entities could be, say, of an alien origin or a multidimensional origin? What's your thoughts?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. That's not offensive at all. I believe so. The Bible itself says that the end times are going to be hallmarked by great deceptions. And so that could mean, in a sense, that these things that we're perceiving as aliens in UFO, these are actually demonic manifestations and demonic things. Again, the devil in masquerade. And so, for me, we talk about these interstellar things. It's like these ships, they defy gravity. They go 100,000, however fast they go, and then they just take this right turn and disappear. That sounds like something very spiritual in the sense to me, in a supernatural sense. And to me, I do believe that these things are demonic deception, and it could increase in the coming days.
Well, it actually speaks in not just the Bible, but a lot of the ancient prophecies that in the last days there will be an escalation of wonders in the sky, beasts of the field, paranormal beasts, and exactly. I try to keep it physical myself and scientific, and I think a lot of it is maybe we've had that all the time. It's just now with the communication skills that we're seeing it more openly in the transference of information. Maybe, but
yeah, it could be.
But I'm not at this point. I'm not at a. That would maybe be for a private conversation.
Because, I'm not a ufologist. I'm not, I'm not skilled in all of the research and everything that most everybody else does. I'm just stating that these things very well could be, again, demons in masquerade.
Yes. And in saying that, we do know that they have special abilities. We do know, Mr. Chad Smith, thank you so much for that super chat, man. That's my first one for the night. I kind of feel I've broke the ice.
What do we got?
Chad Smith, one of our men, donated $2, and we usually give special shout-outs for that. But what I was getting at is we do know that these things have special abilities, special motives, no telling what their motives are. And we do know that there is at a point, you have to draw a line in between our definition of good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And in saying that, that leads into two questions. Who defines that good and evil? I know you being Christian and a devout Christian that you are, that pretty much sets it in stone. The Bible does. But if you look at it from a natural aspect, if these entities, if a certain entity has to feed off of that fear, or has to feed off of that mental stimulus of your soul, or certain, energies that you put off, would that be, and I do understand you have to draw the line with physical attacks, like you getting choked. I've been physically attacked.
Mm-hmm.
But they're blowing me up in the chat. I'm fixing to have to turn it off. I got totally off my. But who defines that good and evil? I know God does eventually. In the judgment, He defines that good and evil. But to certain entities and even certain cultures on the planet and cultural aspects, evil is over here and evil is over here, and good is crisscrossed. There's a gray line. You even look at society. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why it's like, because when you talk about if mankind or man or humanity or me or you were defined to define what is good and what is evil, my suspicion is that it would be very, very low. The bar would be set very, very low.
Absolutely.
Like the Bible has these rules where it's like, you will not lie, you will do no murder, you'll not want to look on your neighbor's wife and have sex with her, and all these things of nature, right? Well, if I was to write these 10 things, I would not make it so hard, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be some barometer of what good and evil is. I'm sure in the mind of Hitler, he was probably thinking he was doing something pretty good. Meanwhile, he was doing the most evil
Absolutely.
You can possibly think of. So if mankind was to set the barometer of what is good and what is evil, that would be very skewed. So we need something so perfect and so holy to create this barometer of what is good and evil. And to me, who sets the standard of good and evil is God Himself, because there's no one greater, there's no one gooder. No, there's no one more good than
better.
God.
Yeah,
and so there's no one more good than God. Don't make fun of me on the chat. I'm only kidding. And so there's no other force greater than the goodness of God to set the barometer of what is good and evil. He's God. He gets to create. He gets to say what's good and evil. We have to bring ourselves into line with His thinking and not our own.
I would agree with that on that cultural aspect, because that is the parameters of most religions, and I will say religions and keep a separation in between spirituality. Mm-hmm. That is the goal of it, is to make yourself better, to ascend to a different plane or a different level, or to be accepted by Christ. Mm-hmm. So in saying that, what is your thoughts on demons? Because you mentioned it earlier in the show, of demons influencing, say, people by possession, or by, how would we say, stimulus, outside of stimulus. Because humans have an inherent nature of being pretty ornery. I'll say that. I'm not going to say evil, because, but we do have an inherent nature of being evil.
I'll say it. I mean, we do have, there's the heart, the Bible says, is desperately wicked above all things. And it's like, I know it feels good for us to say, oh, let's all band together and be one humanity and all that stuff. But we're inherently evil. I mean, leave us to our own devices. Look what we'll do. I mean, I know I'm capable of like crazy evil if I was left to my own devices, right? I'd drink myself to death. I'd drug myself to death. I'd go, whatever the case may be, right? So we are all capable of these atrocious things, But when it comes to demons, and when it comes to the influence in society, possession is actually the most extreme form of the demonic experiences. Um, Outside of that, it's the other things that are really alarming, and they're very imperceptible on how these demonic forces work. And it works like this. I had mentioned earlier that they have roles and that they have functions to influence. So they do have the ability to influence your life, with these things, these various spirits. Fear is a big one in right now around the entire world. The spirit of fear is just running rampant, right? And when you're in fear, you can be easily controlled, right? Spirit of lust, and in pharmakeia, which is I talk about that in the book, which is the spirit of sorcery or drug use, which is also sorcery. And I talk about how the pharmaceutical companies, are being used, and ultimately, it's destroying people. I mean, it's supposed to help people, but it's these opiates and everything are actually opening up the pathways to people are hearing voices and they're being told to kill. And I talk about that stuff in the book. And that has a long history. It's traced back to, these ancient rituals and the poppy, and its use, and it was open up spiritual pathways to hear voices and demons and things. So I make that connection in the book. It's very, very interesting. But they do influence. Evil needs people. And it's not gonna show up with you like a hairy monster and say, "Hi, I'm evil." It's evil, and these spirits function. They need people, and most people don't even know they're influenced by them. But what happens is they get used to push demonic ideologies. They get used to put demonic agendas. They get used to push demonic ideals upon a society, and get them to function in that. And even if you don't worship and bow down and worship a Satan or a statue or anything like that, you don't need to do that. All you have to do is be out of the government of God to be under the government of Satan, and you are susceptible to his influence. That's how it works.
In saying that, we're discussing a lot of the negative side of things. So it would be the same influence that we would have even from the angelic side of things, or from the way, in more generic term, the white side of things. I know I'm probably offending some people here because I've got a lot of friends that are both, walk both ways. But,
right.
So you're saying that there is no chaos in what they're doing. There is an agenda. There is a plan. Does that work both ways? Does that work with the negative side and we'll say it, demonic and angelic?
Yeah. God has a plan. Devil has a plan. It's like, whose plan are you under?
Gotcha.
That's really simple.
That's, I've heard that my whole life, and I see. There's, of course, folks, there's so many multifaceted. We could sit here all night and talk about that.
Oh,
and we
100%. Yeah. I cover a lot of the ground, and that's why I wrote, it's funny because that's why I wrote the book, is because it's not only did I want to tell, some really, creepy and frightening story, which the book does really well, but what I wanted to do is really kind of expose how this whole realm works, and how people, without even knowing it, can be under its influence and walking according to its principles and not even knowing it. And that's what actually the book is about. So when you get the book, I mean, there's a lot of ground covered in the realm of the paranormal, or the demonic realm, along with the stories. But I really do talk about a lot of these things and how it functions in society, as well as the stories.
And we're going to roll back into that. Pascal, I want to thank you so much for that $5 super chat. We really appreciate it. You are the guys that keeps us going. If I can say
That's
this
true.
right, Fat Bass. Thank you so much for that $9.99 super chat, folks. We appreciate that so much. Y'all don't understand how much that actually might help pay for all these subscribers that I've been buying lately that everybody's talking about. But in getting away from the spiritual side of things, of the, for lack of better terms, and you'll hear me say that a bunch because I don't want to get the physical aspects. So you said you've been choked, you've been physically, and we've been spoken to. I've been spoken to.
Yes.
I've been shoved.
Yes.
How dangerous, in your personal experience, are these things? Can they physically? Because I've always come from a rule that they cannot physically kill you without inside stimulus or an inside bite, or you know what I'm saying?
Well, I believe they can kill you. I mean, and that's what
Really?
that's
Okay.
what their role is. Yeah, I mean, it says, like going back to the biblical sense, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So he can kill, he can destroy. They can overwhelm and overtake a human being. One of the most frightening stories, if you don't mind, can we get into one of these stories?
Yeah,
Because
sure. That's what we're here for. That's
and
what
this
I
is
was
how I
getting us
know
into.
they could kill.
That's
the
what
story
we're
will
here to
kind of
talk
prove
about
it.
is those stories and that experience.
Yeah. So one of the most frightening experiences I had the demonic was I was working at a local newspaper in the marketing department writing, and I was living downtown at the time, so it was like really close. But anyway, long story short, there were layoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I got let go, had to leave my swanky downtown apartment, and I moved out west into a house that one of my relatives had abandoned and left, and it was sitting there for some, like 6 months unattended. So when I pulled up to the house, it just looked like the Munsters lived there, or the Addams family. It was like when I came up to the house, it was like the grass was overgrown and green. The the fence was dilapidated, and the door was even like creaking on its hinge in the breeze. And it was, I was like, this is the scene of a horror movie.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
And it was a townhome, so it had these two square bay windows, and it looked over the lot like these two vacant eyes. It reminded me of the Amityville Horror house, and so that's where I set up shop, and I go inside, and inside is just complete and utter heartbreak because the family left that just left everything. So it looked like they were just going to the store and coming back. I mean, literally there was mail on the table, dishes on the sink, kids' toys just strewn about like everywhere. And it just looked like they were coming back from the store. And so it was, it was a heartbreaking scene. And so I was there for a little bit, maybe a week, 2 weeks, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the upstairs bedroom. And so as I was there, I was trying to sleep one night, and I smell this rotten smell permeate through the home. And it smells like rotten eggs with like this chemical sulfury note to it, almost like a gaseous it's like a gaseous note. And I'm smelling around the room. I'm like, where the heck is that coming from? And so I'm smelling around the room, and then I go downstairs to check if it's like garbage or anything, and it's not garbage or anything. And so I look up at the air vent, and I was like, I wonder if it's coming out of the air vent. So I hike up on a chair and go to the air vent, and it's coming from the air vent, and this rot is just blowing directly into my face.
Wow.
And I was like, at that point, I started to get like pretty suspicious that something was going on. So I get off the chair, I cut the power to the utility box, to the AC. I get back up on the chair, and to see if it's still coming out. It's still coming out blowing on my face with no power, no mechanical assistance. This thing was just this stench was just blowing out of the air vent. And so that's when I kind of knew something was happening, in a real spiritual sort of demonic sense, something was happening. So I just kind of like geared myself up for whatever was going to go down. And so I go back upstairs and I go to try to go to sleep. And I'm on the bed, my eyes are closed, and all of a sudden I see this flash of light from beneath my eyes. You can see like a change in the light from when your eyes are closed, from under your eyelids. Well, I saw this flash of, something flash, a flash of light or of movement from beneath my eyelids. And I didn't want to open my eyes, so I turned over, and then a voice called out of the darkness, and it said, Michael. Real slow, real creepy, and it sounded like part whisper, part hiss, and it sounded sounded like it was far away, but it sounded very, very near, almost as if it was spoken like from the back of a cave or something. And so I turn over and I open my eyes, and there's this figure in black standing at my bedside staring down at me. And it's tall, it's lanky, it's crooked shoulders, and its head is cocked to the side with a broad grin looking down at me. And I see a semblance of a face in the back of, deep in its hood, in its cowl. I see the semblance of the face. You see that on the book cover. And it's its sinister grin, just mocking sinister grin, just clear across its face, and its eyes were like jet black nothingness, like there was no light in its eyes. It was just pure death, and that there was the sensation coming off of this thing was vile hatred. It was hot hatred. It was like this. It was just radiating through the room. And not only could you feel this dark, powerful, penetrating hatred on my body, on the form, but I felt it through me, burning through me like hot tar. And you can feel this hatred for me and for humanity. And so, but I looked. The alarm clock was flashing 3:33. 3:33, 3:33, 3:33. So the power cut at that time when that presence showed up. I look down and I see its hand crawling up my chest real slowly. So it's broad grin looking at me because it knows it wants to kill me. And its nails were dragging up my chest, and its intent was to kill me or to choke me, strangle me to death. And it was really interesting because the entity was as much as it was in 3D form or physical form. There were parts of the gown I can see through. So it was as much as it was physical, it was as much spiritual.
Yeah. And
the reason why this was like the most frightening thing I've ever seen was because I've had a lot of experiences with, not seeing them and knowing they're there and things of that nature. But this was the first time it manifested itself in the physical, and I could literally feel it touching my body. It was the first time the spiritual nature made contact physically with my physical body, and its aim was to kill me. And this is why I know that they have the power to do it, because this thing would have and could have strangled or killed me. However he was going to do it.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense. And an interesting thing about its robe was that it wasn't like shreds or anything like that, but it was a black robe, and at the bottom, or what led to the bottom, it was in rectangular like rectangular strips, kind of like we have these blinds in Florida, like the long blinds in Florida for the windows. And they were like in neat rectangular layers, and it was started off with like an ashen gray, but the deeper the layer, the blacker it became. So you could see deep into this gown, and it was flowing on the bottom like it was floating underwater, like a real watery movement to this thing. And this thing is crawling up my chest, and my thought was like, wow, that's kind of cool the way that moves like that. And so there was like a beauty to its movement, which was a strange thought to have at that very moment, I know. But there was a real strange beauty to this, the motion of how it was, how this thing's gown was moving. And so that was the most frightening experience I've ever had.
That would be frightening enough for me, and I've had some pretty hairy ones. We got a question in the from one of our super chats. Fat Bass asked if I can see. Here we go. Should we love our enemies? This legion.
You should not love the devil. No.
Interesting. In saying that, we've got 2 minutes before we go to a quick 5-minute break. So we'll set the tone for when we come back with, you said that they're can be dangerous and they can kill. We also have reports throughout history of the good ones coming and influencing and blessing.
Sure.
And we'll go with that when we come back here shortly. But so
yeah, I touched base on that also in the book. So I couldn't write about the dark stuff without writing about the light stuff.
Absolutely. And I didn't want to keep the tone dark the whole show. You got to have a balance, But yeah, when we come back, we'll definitely get into that. Man, I'm nervous. It's so easy talking to you. Talking to you is great. Keeping up with this chat, man. I'm going to have to, Dave, when I'm doing this, we got to slow this chat down, my friend. But we got about 45 seconds before we go to break. And when we go to break, I'll end up putting us both on mute, and you can go use the restroom, go do whatever you need to do, and we'll go to break for 4 to 5 minutes, and then I'll bring us back in, and we'll get right back at it for hour number 2.
All right.
But let's see here. I'm just going to roll right into it. For all of you folks that's just joined us, we are fixing to go to break, but I'm going to get me we're going to take a quick 5-minute break with our guest, Mr. Michael Gorga, esteemed artist, studiist, and experiencer, definitely an experiencer, with the demonology and the afterlife. We will be back here shortly. Thank you, folks, so much for the super chats. Thank you for hanging in with us. Have patience. I'm learning. We're going to make it through this, by golly. And in saying that, we are going to go to break. And I shall be right back. Well, folks, we are back for hour number 2, and we are going to have some fun tonight. I'm your host, Gary Spikes Jr., for those that y'all have just joined the show, and I am filling in for Miss Lynn Wallington tonight. She has decided to not grace us with her presence because she's got more interesting things going on in her life and wonderful things going. And so I have been chosen to come aboard and take over. We have a wonderful guest tonight with Mr. Michael Gorga. He is I would say, a very integrated and very intelligent writer that specializes in demons and the paranormal and the aspects of. Been writing for a long time and has written a great book. And I am pleased to have each and every one of y'all here. I had this scripted text, but I ended up closing out my screen, so we're going to ad-lib it. Mr. Gorga, how you doing? Welcome back for hour number 2.
I'm doing great, and looking forward to doing the second hour.
Man, it's been awesome. It's been a literal, for a science fiction term, it's been a mind melt for me. The conversation has been so dynamic and great, and keeping up with. I'm trying to concentrate on, because we're talking so much great stuff, and then trying to keep up with the chat, and we're doing it. We're doing it. I do want to thank each and every one of the super chats. It doesn't look like we had any during the break, so I'll catch them here shortly. I do have the man with the plan, the big boss man, on standby, keeping an eye on me from the back scenes of SOR Radio, Mr. Dave Scott, and he has not shut me down yet, so I'm doing something right. Mr. Gorga, right when we left, we was talking, about the pretty dark side of the spiritual aspects of as we were saying, demons and angels, and I'd like to kind of turn it, and we'll go back that direction if you want to here in a little bit, but I'd kind of like to turn it to the positive side, because I know you said you did cover it in the book, and we can always focus on the bad, but I think sometimes we need to focus on the good too, to build us a good balance. And so I'll let you get into that, about the positive aspects that this is happening, not only in your personal life, but in what you've studied and writing in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can't talk about the dark side of the paranormal or the supernatural and not discuss the light side of the paranormal, because what we're talking about this paranormal realm, and it's this fantastical realm of demonic beings and entities. There's angelic forces, there's angels, and I'm not talking about babies with wings or female angels. There's no female angels in the Bible, by the way. And when we talk about angels, we really have to have an understanding of what angels are, right? So these angels are a militant force. They're armies in heaven. These are soldiering, warlike beings equipped with supernatural powers, and they are out. They do God's bidding as well. And so we have to stop thinking about it. I know art and culture has really shaped our minds to what we think angels and demons look like, but they really have done a horrible disservice to both, and even to the devil, by the way, because I'm just going to detract since I just mentioned that. So in popular culture and in art and all entertainment and all that stuff, we like to believe that the devil or Satan, he walks around with like a pitchfork, and he's wearing red leotards, or he's this hairy monster, and he's this horned being, and is all this stuff. And he's actually none of that. In fact, in the biblical sense, the Bible says that he was the most beautiful creation God ever created. He was the most beautiful angel God ever created, and he was created with jewels in his form, meaning that it says that his body was formed of onyx and beryl and diamond and gold and sapphire and rubies. And however this form looked like, I mean, I haven't seen that form, but he was called Light Bearer. And the reason why he was called like the Light Bearer was because in a body like that, and you're reflecting light, you're just you're reflecting these facets of light with every movement. So he was the most beautiful creation God ever created, and he was a covering cherub. He protected over the throne of God. So basically, he walked in the midst of God. He was the closest you could get to God in heaven, and he was also thought to be the musical director of the heavenly choir, because it also says, along with the jewels, he had these musical instruments built into his form. It says, the pipes and timbrels I've put in your form, or however that scripture says it. So it speaks of these musical instruments. So not only was he reflecting this glorious light, he was this musical creature's musical being, and basically he was in charge of creating these worship songs unto God. So you have all of heaven singing the devil's worship songs. This was before he was the devil. Now, when so it's a far cry from what entertainment has actually portrayed him as. He's a highly intelligent, highly cunning, cunning being, because he was able to draw a third of the angels. Again, however that many that was, he was able to influence them to come to his side, and in this war or this rebellion that he waged in heaven against God and against the other angels. So he created this argument. He drew them all to the side. But when he was kicked out, along with his angels, his name is Lucifer. The angel's name is Lucifer. But when he was kicked out, he became Satan, meaning that Satan was his title. Lucifer's his name. Satan is a title. It means deceiver. It means adversary. It means supplanter. No good names. But that's the thing. So Lucifer himself was the most beautiful, glorious angel God ever created, with the greatest intelligence, the greatest of power, musical influence, and Lucifer was heaven's rock star, and that's who he was. And he's not this horned creature or anything like that. And so. And I said all that to say that these things that art and entertainment have tried to shape these images, they've got it really, really wrong, and it's created this identity inside of this vision that we think these things are. So when it comes to angels, we think there's baby with wings, and they're women, and they got wings and all this stuff. I mean, there's only a couple of angels in the Bible that do have wings, and that was the seraphim, which was 6 wings, and the cherubim, and everything else did not have wings. And so when we get to the angels, they're, like I said, it's a warring, scary. They're a warlike culture. They are scary beings. Just because of the holiness of what they carry, God's holiness. So when people see them, they fall down in fear, but then they say, "Get up, don't worship me," because they can't be worshipped, and they don't want to take the worship from God. Unlike Satan, he will let you sit there and worship him. And so we have to have an understanding of what these beings really are. And so as much as there are demons, there are actually angelic forces out to protect and to work on God's behalf as well.
Let's take a quick little detour here. In your personal life, was studying the aspects that we've been, talking about, you've had a lot of negative encounters and experiences with the entities or the subject matter. What about your personal positive? Have you had directly that you could directly correlate to interaction with a spiritual being as a positive nature?
Yeah, not in the sense where I've had, angels show up in my room like the demon did. Nothing like that. I had one experience I actually write about in the book, and it wasn't visible, but it was an audible. It was, if that makes sense, audible vision in a sense. It was experienced just audibly. And what it was I got to hear the angelic choir in a sense. And I'll explain it. I don't know if it's going to make much sense because, again, we're talking about these very highly spiritual things. They may not connect to, immediately connect, make that connection with all of the listeners or anything like that, because we are talking about a world so far beyond us that it's hard for us to really put our human understanding around a very, very supernatural thing or experience.
Yeah. Well,
if that makes sense.
I'm thinking we're looking at a real good aspect here, and here's where I'm getting at. We're converting to and once again, I'm going to try to get us away from the, it's very hard to not talk this subject and not talk spiritualism and religion. But you don't hear as much about positive influence on a mainstream level as you do the negative, which in I don't know why, because I look in my own personal life and I can say at least on 5 fingers that direct influence from a spiritual being has caused positive aspects of my life. They've saved my life. And you hear in history of whatever you want to call, once again, I'll say for the lack of better terms, you hear of all the coming forth of the negative stuff, but what about all the times that people's heard that still calm voice and saying, "Hey, let's get out of here."
Yeah. That's right.
A 80-pound mother ripping a car door or lifting a car off of their child.
Yes.
To me, that's under direct intervention of the positive nature, in my own personal opinion, of the other side, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. There is definitely that. Like, we also have conscious, where that is a tool that is used for, hey, don't go there, don't do that, or that's wrong. But you could sear that by you can sear your conscience to the point you can't hear it. That is possible as well. But so we have that as a tool, but there is those times where you just get that, God knows how to speak to people, and he speaks in that still small voice, what you said. And sometimes it comes with such force that it's like it's indescribable. But it's that the leading or the direction or the guidance, to go there, do that, don't do that, whatever the case may be. And I have had one experience where I was, right after I finished the book and was ready to get it over to my editor. I had just put the last dot and crossed the last T and said, okay, we're going to editing. And that night I was coming home from a friend's house, and it was about 9 something at night. It was raining, and I got in this near fatal car crash. Someone ran a red light, completely took off my entire front end. And I was in this little Honda, and there was no way I should have lived. there was absolutely everyone was just shocked when they saw my door open, that I walked out. And when you see the wreck, it's almost like something stopped the metal from going any further. It just starts crushing up against this one point. It's really crazy. And so for me, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe I was divinely kept that night, whether the hand of God or by angels. I believe that I was preserved, because even the witnesses said it. They said, listen, I race cars. I'm on tracks all the time. I've seen 1,000 wrecks. That was one you should not have walked away from. And so I should have been dead. But I do believe it was the work of this book that inspired evil to try to take me out.
I agree. In saying that, we're going to get a little bit more physical side of things. We talked about it a little bit earlier, you've been choked, you've been physically attacked, I've been physically attacked.
Yeah.
What about physical possession? We know that they can, when I say physical possession, we know they can physically possess us and control our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
In saying that, what about physical manifestation? You was talking earlier about the one that you seen actually was like floating in between, like the veil was fading. You could see the spiritual side of things, and you could see through him and see the physical side of it.
Yeah.
We do know that they can control physical mass. We know
Mm-hmm.
that they can physically possess us. They can make,
Mm-hmm.
Control our bodies.
Yeah.
But what about physical manifestation?
As in possession, you mean, or some other form of manifestation?
Actually coming to you in a physical form, to the point of like you were saying, you physically seen it in front of
Mm-hmm.
you, and you felt it reach forward and grab you.
Right.
But it was walking in between both. It was so. Do you think that they can physically manifest themselves in different forms?
Sure.
To interact with
Yeah.
us?
Yeah. And it says, the demons or the angels, they transform themselves into angels of light. So they have this ability, this supernatural or paranormal ability, to transform themselves into any shapes they want. And so we have these people who hear the voices of, or see their dead children, or they think they're talking to grandma, or their dead grandma, or anything, or things of that nature. And these demons, they know full well who these people are. They can mimic their voices, they can mimic their dress, they can mimic everything about them. But yes, they can take on various forms for sure.
What about physical? What about possession of animals? Because we know when Legion, and I know we're going back to the Bible, and that's the only example I can bring it up. They possessed the pigs, and they ran off into the ocean.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and you talk about through history that witches have used animal familiars throughout history. It wasn't just 17th century America, but it was Native American Indians did the same exact thing with shamanism. And it's a very, very a unique thing that we see is that how these rituals are very, very familiar from witchcraft, from shamanism to Caribbean voodoo. And it's how did they get this knowledge without ever being basically on the same continent as each other, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how does this knowledge become, how do they know to use tobacco or alcohol and fire and sacrifice? How did they all know this? It's the same thing, but a different wrapper, from voodoo to witchcraft to Indian shamanism, Native American shamanism. And so, but anyway, so they were able to use these animal familiars, the witches would use like cats and owls and things like that. But what's very, very peculiar is that the Native Americans did the same thing, except that they used hawks and they used snakes and they used, well, how did they get this knowledge? And how is it that it was exactly the same, just different, different forms of the same idea, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and you're talking about like, can they possess animals and things like that? Yeah, sure. Yeah, Jesus drove him into the pig. Sure. Demons and witches through demonic powers can use animal familiars and for their use as well. So yeah, I believe they can manifest in animals.
I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench right down the middle of this, and I'm really gonna stir this thing up. Being a cryptid man, I've come face to face. It's documentable. Everybody knows me, knows my story. I come face to face, 24 inches with a Sasquatch. What's your opinion? Demon?
I wasn't
Angel?
there.
Very well put. Thank you.
Yeah. I wasn't there. I don't know. But if I would have to guess, I mean, I do think that these things that we believe are, and some of these things, and you can come face to face with these things. They can manifest in the physical. So, and they can leave behind prints.
Yeah.
And I talk about that in the book as well. You know, the things that in the story of the possessed girl, there's a story in there of what happened to her that I won't get into all the details because you check it out in the book, but she had an experience where she, you know, it was something left a paw print in the house. And she says, look, there it is. Right. And so they can leave prints. They can show up in a very, very physical nature. And we can think that these things are real. Now, did you see an actual Sasquatch? I don't know. I wasn't there. Can these beings transform themselves into those images? Sure.
Absolutely. So, could it have controlled my mind to the point that I thought I was perceiving that when it was something else standing there? These are the questions that we ask, you know, and these are the questions that you have to ask and I have to ask as an interviewer, and and I have to take every scope and every aspect from that. I've done a lot of interviews with a lot of different religions and a lot of different aspects and a lot of different cultures, ranging from Nepalese, Tibet, Yeti to the Orang Pendak and all the way across. And one of the personal questions that I ask myself, and I'm getting to that to say this next question, when I seen that, is it made me question every aspect of my spirituality, because being raised the way that I was, we didn't address Bigfoot. We addressed Bigfoot or Sasquatch as demonic.
Right, yeah.
And when I'm physically standing here looking at this, it made me question my spirituality. And in searching for answers, I literally found a very, very archaic answer, for lack of better terms, is who cares? If you believe in a higher power, something was standing there.
Yeah.
No matter what it was, what the interpretation of the stimulus and my sociological and religious background caused me to see it in a certain light. I know I seen something physically standing there. There's no doubt in my mind. I found tracks. But what was representing that, we don't know. It was there. Right. We could analyze it for forever. But we don't know. So in saying that, I'm going to lead to this question in your book of how do you, when you was doing your research and stuff for your book, did you look at it from strictly a Christian perspective, or did you look at it from a more scientific perspective, or did you merge the two? And if you did, how did you do that?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of everything. So obviously, I'm going to come at it from a very spiritual sense. That's the fabric of who I am. So that's the lens I see things through. Other people see things through another lens, and that's what they write by, and that's fine for them. Me, as who I am, I'm going to write through the lens of my worldview or my spiritual worldview. So, and that's going to translate into the book. But I did also try to bring in there like other cultures and other things and other spiritualities and in other cultures as well. But I did try to balance it out. But again, who I am as a person,
absolutely,
and what I believe, that makes a more of a translation into the book.
Well, of course, because you wrote it, and that's how you presented it as such. So it's, in my sense, like when I write a paper or something, I always put my personal aspect or my personal opinion. And that's what exactly all of this is. When we break it down to it, we do know that there is something out there. But everybody has a different aspect, a different way of perceiving it. Where one person would perceive it as sheerly evil, another one would probably present it as more being for the lack of better terms, in the gray, and some would even see it as being good. But you do have to draw that line, even biologically and sociologically, down the middle. So when you was writing your book, you put your own personal experiences, your personal information, and of course your personal influences, because it's your book.
Right. Yeah.
Other people's translations would be, and interactions are far different. The same entity that you've seen, there's been some people in the chat that was, actually naming, and that's going to lead into this next question. One of the oldest stories in all of the formats, that, if you wanted to say it that way, all the cultures, all the way to interact with these entities, whether it be good, whether it be evil. How, if they are so prolific, how are humans controlling them? Or are they controlling them, or is the entity letting them think that they're controlling them?
Yeah, the entity's smarter than that, so they let you think that you're controlling them. But they're actually controlling you. So it's, that's, it's a touchy area, because people don't want to think that they're being controlled, but they really are. And if you think that you have power over demonic powers that you're tampering with, and you think that they're doing your bidding, they have you right where they want you. You're under their control.
Almost,
and not the other way around.
Almost that whole reverse psychology type thing.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
And you mentioned something to me that was very prolific earlier. These things are millennia old. These things are very experienced, very adverse, and whichever way you want to translate your interaction with them. We as humans, our consciousness, that is far, in my personal opinion, now there are beliefs out there, and me being Buddhist, I have to keep an open mind to it, of reincarnation, of astral projection, far older souls. I've kind of experienced some of that in my paranormal. Where, in my personal opinion, where we come from that is maybe interactions with beings from the other side. When you get that view of deja vu, or you get, because there's a wide area here. We cover a lot of ground on this. Okay, so when you, I know I'm opening up a can of worms, and I apologize.
Well, in a sense. So if I have your understanding correctly, it's that like a deja vu, or some sort of like psychic information, or some sort of information or warning
outside of the norm of a psyche perspective.
Well, these things do exist, and it's funny because let me just I'm trying to figure out how I want to
I know.
mold
I'm sorry
this.
I put you on the spotlight.
No, it's fine. I'll answer it. I'm just trying to figure out how to divide it. Let's just talk about. Let me talk about real quick to answer the questions. I'll talk about ghosts, and then I'll talk about like other apparitions.
Absolutely.
Now, these certain apparitions, this have mystified people for thousands of years, right? Even people like back in early America, say like Increase Mather or Cotton Mather, they were really confused, because these guys were very Christian men. These were very godly men, And so even they grappled with the idea of not a ghost, but someone who died of a relative.
Mm-hmm.
And the relative comes and they say, and they give warning to something, or they give, this to that. And they really didn't have any kind of conclusive answer. And says, well, if God wanted to, allow this person to appear and give warning about that, then he's God. He could do that. Right?
Yes.
And so, I for my own personal experience, I recently had my father passed away a couple months ago. And we weren't very exactly sure how he passed away or what made him pass away, because he had so many health problems that he just, didn't take care of. And I'm getting very personal here. But, and so shortly after he died, my sister said, Daddy came to me and he said it was his heart. And so I immediately, me being me, I didn't say it, but I immediately thought, oh, now you're just seeing like demonic things. Mm-hmm. But then not too long after, I had a dream, and he says, in the dream, he says, my heart hurts. And I said, well, let me get you to the hospital. And he was just pointing to his heart. My heart hurts. So, and it was one of those like real, vivid, real things. So, and it was because of those kinds of apparitions, those dreams, or whatever that was. That now I completely convinced that it was his heart and not any of the other things.
Yeah, the stimulant.
Any of the health things. Now, when we talk about like ghosts and ghostly messengers, there's not a lot. I haven't seen a lot in history where like really good ghosts that show up and say, hey, you know what? Maybe you should call your mom, or, go hug your child today. It's always some sort of malevolent, sort of thing. Right. And so these two things, I do believe there's some form of separation, and I can only come to the conclusion what the forefathers came up with was, well, if God wants to allow this message to come through, then he's God. He could do that, right? And that's the answer. I mean, it's really. I think these things are we grapple with these things because they're so far beyond us. That's why it's called the paranormal. It's beyond scientific knowledge. That's what paranormal is, right? So it's like this. It's not very easily explainable by our normal, natural things of nature. But if God wants to send my father in a dream and say, my heart hurts, my heart hurts, well, then God can do that.
Well, I will tell you personally, I had a very bad experience that's very well documentable in the medical world. It caused me to spend 3 years in a wheelchair, and I was dead for pronounced dead. And I had an afterlife experience with my grandfather of a Christian basis.
Wow.
And when I say Christian basis, because of like I said, of my grandfather. And so I truly believe in what you're saying can happen if it's allowed. Right. You don't hear as much about it.
No.
You hear more of the dark side and the more malevolent side. But I have to go back to that statement of, once again, who defines, and I'm not going to, we won't get back on that, but who defines the malevolent and the dark? We don't know what we're, like you said, we really don't know what we're dealing with. We just know what we're taught. Question from a Sasquatch right quick, and a very good question by that.
The real Sasquatch?
He goes by Sasquatch.
He watches the show.
Can demons be photographed?
Can they be photographed? Well, you've had, through historic pictures of ghosts and things of that nature. It's possible. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't take a picture of the things that happened to me because they're so paralyzing and so freaky.
Yeah,
that it would be impossible to grab the camera and just shoot off a couple of shots. But if they wanted to be photographed, they would. I mean, they're a super intelligence, and if they wanted to do that, they could. If they don't want to do it,
you're not
You're
going
not
to
going to get the shot.
Very well put. The reason I was saying that is I got presented with a alleged picture of they thought was a dog man that faded right in front of them and faded right out. And as soon as I seen the picture, I was like, And I pulled up one of my old books about renderings of ancient Sumerian demons.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked just, the head structure, the shoulder structure, and everything looked just like it. And when I presented it to the guy, great guy, is actually a mentor of mine, and I said, go do the research yourself. And he goes, I don't have to. He goes, I've done it. And so it made me feel good that, with a little bit of knowledge by learning different cultural past, that we was able to figure that out. But once again, it come to your spiritual and your sociological aspects of where you come from this genre of. This is a hard subject. It's a hard topic to cover for a lot of people. You wrote a book about it, and it's a personal walk for you. Well, there's a lot of folks from a different aspect that it's a very personal walk for them. Mm-hmm. And I will say this, that I apologize if we've offended anybody tonight. We're rolling down on the 20-minute mark to the end of the show, so we're going to start, going a direction here. But if we've offended you, we do apologize. But this is his personal opinions, and you have your personal opinions. I don't think you've crossed any lines here tonight, Mr. Gorga, at all. I've enjoyed the conversation. A lot of folks have really enjoyed this, and we're going to continue.
Awesome.
In saying that, with all of the interactions that you've had and the aspect of your physical attacks and everything that's happened to you in a negative nature, and the minimal amount of positive interjection, would that be the word I could say?
Interactions, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, interactions, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that, is there a purposing for that? Is there any kind of stimulus in your life that caused the negative side to be more prominent than the good side?
Yeah, because whenever you saw an individual or a person decides that they are going to become a believer in Jesus Christ, you've just changed camps. And so now you have an eternal mortal enemy who's against you, doesn't want you to know anything about Christ, doesn't want you to know anything about God, doesn't want you telling anything about God, doesn't want you advancing the kingdom of God in any way, shape, form. And so he's going to be completely and vehemently opposed to you. And that's why these I suffer from time to time these kinds of very dramatic assaults.
Yeah.
Is because I don't play for his team.
Gotcha. In saying that, we know there's got to be a balance. There's got to be a good side, and there's got to be a bad side.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a balance, why do we see a more prolific negative side than we do the good side? Is it because that the good side doesn't care? Are they outnumbered? What would be that stimulus in your personal opinion?
No, I believe that we are very susceptible to evil influences, and they're readily available, meaning that our desires make us very readily available. If we're controlled by greed, we're going to be, we're going to be functioning under this spirit of greed and doing all kinds of crazy crap and screwing people over to get money and all that kind of, betraying people to get money and all that kind of stuff. Right. And, and likewise, whatever you pick your poison, right. Your lust, you're going to be driven by lust. You're going to be, hooked on pornography, or you're going to be, you're just going to be, hooked on relationship to relationship, right? Driven by these lusts and stuff. So these kinds of the influences are readily available, and when it comes to the things of God, they must be sought out, and that's the difference. So it's there. You have to seek it out.
Absolutely.
But for these evil influences, they're already functioning all around you. You just kind of dip your foot in the pool here and there, and it's there. It's just there.
I'm going to be, Mr. Gorga, we've been talking for, 2 hours, and I'm going to be brutally honest. And I have a struggle with the word evil. I believe that there are evil entities out there. I believe that there is a presence of evil all over the world. And I believe that in my personal opinion, everything that has happened to you in your mind was evil. I believe that it affected you in a negative manner. But there is a lot of influences that have been, or a lot of things that have been, how would we say, misdiagnosed as evil and demonic. I believe that there are spirits out there. I believe in angels, and like I said, I believe in God, and I believe in, but I believe that there are other things out here that we as a sociological community have gotten indoctrined over a period of time with our personal experiences of people before us that have made some things evil that are not. I believe in natural spirits. I believe in
I mean there could be things misdiagnosed and or in that nature. I mean I talk about stuff in the book that people being misdiagnosed with schizophrenia and things of that nature, where it's like we medicate these people to solve we're trying to solve what may be a spiritual condition with natural means, and they're never going to be set free, and they're never going to be healed, and they're never going to be their minds are never going to be made right, because a lot of times we're dealing with there's a room for psychiatrics and psychology and things of that nature, but some of these things are beyond that.
Are beyond that, absolutely.
Right, and it's time to start that we take these things more seriously, because these people could be very well suffering a very, very real spiritual battle, and it's not healed by your
medication,
natural medicine.
Absolutely. I believe 100%. Even 40, 50, 100 years ago, what we thought was demonic possession and demonic behavior turns to find out to be paranoid schizophrenia, turns to find out to be in somebody with mental issues, biochemical problems, tumors. Science is proving that, but there are certain cases. Me and you mentioned one before the show, that Ed and Lorraine Warren, the Amityville Horror, and anything that we say, people's going to be kind of pulling apart, but there are a lot of cases that are will never be explained by modern medicine. It might be explained by science, by an outside possession or an outside source of a metaphysical entity stepping in, or another subconsciousness stepping into that consciousness and taking over. In saying that, how do we as a people draw that fine line?
That's a very fine line, and it's like when you talk about I'm no psychiatrist and I'm no psychologist, so I don't know exactly where that line is, but it has to be these things have to be almost have to be they have to be brought out to God, really. You know what I mean? And so it's like, is this what this is, or is that what it is? Because the Bible calls him the great physician.
Absolutely.
The Bible calls Jesus the great physician. He's the wonderful counselor. He's the healer. So some of these things we really kind of have to take to him and kind of, or bring him to the spiritual sense, to have somebody say, yes, this is, this is medical, or this is very spiritual. So it's like there's that fine line, and it's just about a matter of discovery as to,
Absolutely.
How we should treat this thing.
Very, very well put. Just like I was telling you with seeing the Sasquatch that I did, I went through all of this analytical thing, being the investigator that I am. What did I see? And that's where I come to the point. It really doesn't matter. I seen something.
Right.
And it affected me this way. It
Right.
started out being negative, and it turned into a positive thing. I was able to change my life and my aspect of life about that. And I think you said something earlier that really kind of hit me on the up here when you said our reaction to this stimulus leads into the next action. Did you remember? You didn't say it exactly that way, but when you was talking about when it was standing over your bed, you felt that fear and you showed that fear, and then it became even more. What's the word? I guess aggressive. Would that be the right way of saying it?
Well, I mean, it was already standing there. They when they come like that, it's just a very, very frightful thing, and
Yes.
it's paralyzing. It comes with a paralyzing power all its own anyway. So it's not like it was feeding off my fear. It just showed up and it's like doing its thing, you know?
Yeah. But when I say that, I'm seeing a lot of patterns in my investigational point of dealing with this style of entity that they seem to feed upon, and I mentioned that earlier in the conversation about they seem to feed upon this reaction. When we exude fear, they feed upon that.
Yeah. Like if the fear could give them more power, sure.
Okay, in saying that, if they have to have that to survive, does it still make it evil?
They don't need it to survive. They already are what they are.
True. Being immortal beings, you very well could be. The whole point I was getting to that is a tiger will kill a human to eat. A lion will kill a human to eat.
Right.
We have defined it through our religious aspects and our sociological. Sorry, that question I'm gonna have to ask because I was leading right into that. I'll just. How did you get the end? How do you deal with these entities attacking you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I'm finally able to speak, because what happens, these things, they literally take your breath away as well. And so, because they don't want you to cry out for help or anything like that. So, but when I finally was able to speak, I call on the name of Jesus Christ because he has power over all of these demonic forces. And the reason why these things dispel at his name is that Jesus said, to his believers and those who believe in him and follow him, he says, I give you the power, I give you the authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and all the power of the enemy. And so he gives that authority and that power, that supernatural power to overcome these supernatural paranormal demons. It's in his name alone, because in order for you to drive out anything, you need something or someone greater than those demonic powers, and that power is in the name of Jesus Christ. And that's how I got it to leave. And it's funny because once you mention the name, it's almost like it folds in on itself like a mist. Mm-hmm. It just sort of like collapsed into itself like a mist, and then just vanished away as soon as I was able to call in the name of Jesus. That's how I got rid of it, and that's how people can get rid of theirs too.
On that, I'm going to throw you a left curve. We got 3 minutes, and then we're going to have to start winding it down. Being raised the way I was, a Christian aspect, had my interpretation, my opinion. Other people say that it wasn't. Was Sasquatch, aggressive behavior. I called upon the name of God. Mm-hmm. No response. Kept it up. 4 or 5 times.
All right.
This was after having my sighting and coming to the realization.
Right. Interesting.
That is what, in my personal opinion, and at that point, now here's the whole point, and folks, I'm going to say this is very personal about me. This is what converted me to Buddhism. I was at a very close spot in my life with Christ. I thought, but yet it didn't work. So I started searching. What of these beings, 7 foot tall, 8 foot tall, husky, look like gorillas, or however you want to put it, and yes, I know I'm just saying it. I don't have time to get into the explanations, folks. Would not leave when I called upon the name of God. the way my understanding is, if you call upon the name of the Creator, the justified Creator, that all things have to respond in accordance. They didn't. So was I dealing with a natural being, a natural animal, or was I dealing with something more powerful than my level of my belief and my spirituality?
Are you asking me that question?
I'm asking everybody.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
That's where that would be a long discussion for me and you.
I don't know,
in
right?
Private, because that's what changed my whole aspect, and I will never turn my back on your Christian belief, anybody's Christian belief, my early Christian belief in life. But I sometimes wonder if we're not. And please don't let me offend anybody, but I'm just saying, I sometimes wonder if we let Pascal, thanks you for the $2 super chat. I sometimes wonder if our own overthinking things, because it does say in all religions that when you break it flat out down to the spirituality of things, it's your own inner self, your own inner walk, your own inner strive to make yourself better, either to the light or whatever you want to call it. Christianity, Jesus Christ, Allah. It's a personal walk. And in saying that, Mr. Gorga, thank you so much. Final thoughts for you.
Well, my final thoughts is someone mentioned this convo is fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. I love to have these conversations, and I'm grateful to speak with you and your listeners today. The final thoughts is I just wanted to tell you where you can get the book.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
book is called Demons Among Us: Shocking Real Life Stories from the Paranormal. And you can find that on Amazon. It's available in Kindle and paperback. And the Kindle is available right now for $4.77. So if you got some less than $5 jingling in your pocket, it's an amazing read. We didn't touch on the first fully documented case of demonic possession in American history.
Yes.
But that's a fascinating story all in of itself. So you pick up the book, you can read that stories between took place in 1671, some 20 years before the witch trials, between a minister and a 16-year-old maid. And it's absolutely fascinating. So you'll get that in the book as well. And you can find me on my social channels at Instagram at m.r.gorga and on Facebook at mrgorga.
Thank you so much. It has been, a literal mind craziness tonight. Thank you so much for coming on. Great conversation. I can have these conversations like you. I'm like you. I could have them all the time.
All day long.
Great, wonderful guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I can't say it enough. And folks, thank you so much for y'all joining us. I know we probably stirred the pot a little bit, but as Dave likes to say, sometimes you have to stir it to get it to season up right, just to eat it, to get it to taste good. So we're gonna try to do it again. Mr. Gorga, I'll get with as far as I'm concerned, I would love to speak with you again.
Sure.
If I get the opportunity after this, Dave might be like, nope, you're not hosting again.
Yeah, too crazy for podcasts, and we're never going to have them again.
But I want to
sure.
I want to thank you again so much for coming on and spending your time here with us at Spaced Out Radio.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it, man. It was good. It was refreshing.
Yeah.
Some of it was hard, because we do have different aspects. I was very deep, Christian roots, and I'll never deny that, and I'll say that again. And then switching to the Buddhism is a little bit more mellow and a little bit more open minded, but there's so many things out there that we can't explain.
No, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, talk about the realm of the paranormal. That's why it's so fascinating for so many people. There's just so many levels to it,
Absolutely. I've got to shut her off now. Thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Gorga. I'd love to have you back on again. Folks,
Sure.
We got the guitar guru himself. I've got my beard going just like he does. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal sending us off into Never Neverland as usual with the song Argentina. Of course, he is the official music of Spaced Out Radio and a personal favorite of mine, so let's ride off into the sunset together. We would like to thank each and every one of you listeners out there for our continuous support, and a special thanks to all you members here in the chat room, all of you. You are the ones that keep us going here at Spaced Out Radio. Every super chat means so much to us, especially me tonight. Thank you. It being my first night. That support for Dave and us here at Spaced Out is awesome. You can catch us again each and every night right here on YouTube, Spreaker, and Twitch. So choose your poison. Choose all of them. The more the merrier. Be sure to tell your friends and family and everybody else to hit that subscribe button and hit the like button, and be sure and hit the notification button so you can catch the next show, because here at Spaced Out Radio, we do own the night.
This is our last goodbye. Young hearts will stop. Torn souls set free. All that we have is now. If this is what you want, then come to it's like to live two lives and have to choose sorrow and song. They dance, let them fall off the perfect life with
Do you want to talk to him?
Great job, Mr. Gorga.
I think he's already shut down.
Hear me?
There we
Great
go.
job.
Oh, yeah, thanks. It was awesome. Had a great time.
Great job. Thanks for breaking in the rookie.